They called him the devil's violinist. Niccolò Paganini played so fast, so flawlessly, that people believed he'd sold his soul to the devil. With his pale face, long fingers, and wild stare, he looked almost supernatural. Some claimed they saw a shadowy figure behind him during performances. Paganini denied it all. But he didn't mind the rumors. They sold more tickets. In 1913, a piece of music caused an actual riot. Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring premiered in Paris, and the audience lost their minds, screaming, fighting, even arrests. Why? The music was loud, chaotic, and completely new. Dancers moved like wild animals, not ballet. It shocked high society so much they couldn't handle it. But today, it's a masterpiece. Sometimes genius just arrives too soon. Johannes Brahms was a perfectionist, so much so he destroyed hundreds of his own compositions. He once said, "If it's not perfect, it's firewood." Early works, burned. Entire symphonies, gone. We'll never know what masterpieces he erased from history. What survives is brilliant, but imagine what he left in the flames. Eric Satie was odd. He wore the same gray velvet suit every day, ate only eggs and white food. He told no one where he lived. People thought he was just eccentric, a strange genius, nothing more. But when he died, friends entered his apartment for the first time. They found a tiny, dusty room filled with bizarre drawings, hundreds of umbrellas, and music no one had ever heard. Whole compositions forgotten. Satie had a second apartment. He never told a soul. Jean-Baptiste Lully was the king's favorite composer. He practically invented French opera. And when he conducted, he didn't use a little stick. He used a giant staff, a long iron rod, to pound the beat on the floor. One night, during a performance for King Louis XIV, he got a little too into it. He slammed the staff down and missed. He struck his own foot. It got infected. Doctors told him, "We have to amputate." But Lully refused. He said, "I can't conduct with only one leg." The wound turned to gangrene, and Lully, the most powerful musician in France, died from conducting, literally. Johann Sebastian Bach was one of the greatest composers in history. But did you know he once got thrown in jail? In 1717, he was working for a duke in Weimar. A good job. But Bach wanted better. So when a prince from another court offered him a new position, he accepted, but the duke said no. Bach pushed back again and again, and the duke got fed up. So what did he do? He had Bach arrested, locked him up for nearly a month for being too persistent. But here's the twist. While in prison, Bach didn't complain. He started writing music, including the first pages of the Well-Tempered Clavier, one of the most important works in Western music. Even behind bars, Bach was composing brilliance. In the early 1840s, Giuseppe Verdi was done. He had lost his wife and both of his young children, all within 2 years. The pain crushed him. He vowed to never compose again. But fate wasn't done with him. One day, a friend handed him a libretto, the text of an opera called Nabucco. Verdi didn't want to read it, but he opened it, and one line changed everything. Va pensiero sull'ali dorate. Fly thought, on golden wings. These were words of exile, of longing, of lost hope. Just like his own sorrow, he composed the opera in a storm of emotion, and Nabucco became an instant sensation. That one libretto pulled Verdi back from the edge, and from the ashes of his grief rose one of the greatest composers of all time. What if I told you one of the most celebrated composers in history spent years running from the police? Richard Wagner wasn't just a musical genius. He was also a political revolutionary. In 1849, he joined a failed uprising in Dresden. When the rebellion collapsed, he fled the city with a fake passport and a price on his head. For over a decade, Wagner lived in exile across Europe, broke, hunted, and unwanted. And yet, it was during this chaotic time that he began writing the Ring Cycle, one of the most ambitious works in music history. The man who had to hide to survive created a masterpiece that would echo for centuries. Did you know Mozart pulled off one of the greatest musical feats at just 14 years old? In 1770, he heard a secret piece called Miserere, performed only at the Vatican and forbidden to be copied. He listened once. That night, he wrote the entire piece from memory, note for note. When the Pope found out, he didn't punish him. He gave him an award. Mozart, genius, rebel, and maybe the first musical hacker in history. What if one of the greatest symphonies was also a farewell letter? In 1893, Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky premiered his final work, the Sixth Symphony, later titled Pathétique. Just 9 days later, he was dead. Officially, cholera from drinking unboiled water, but rumors swirled. Some say he was forced to take his own life, pressured by a secret court of elites to protect his reputation. And the music? It tells a chilling story. The final movement doesn't end in triumph. It collapses into darkness, a slow, quiet fade into nothing. Was he saying goodbye? Was this his final confession, told in music? We may never know. But one thing's certain, Pathétique doesn't just sound like grief. It feels like it.